Okay, so I'm a filmmaker. My first film was the Clean Bin Project. I lived zero waste for a year. It really got me excited about garbage and what people throw away. So when I started looking at people's garbage, actually one particular time when I was looking at people's garbage, we were doing a waste audit at a school. We were putting the plastic in the plastic pile and the organics, the compost in the compost pile, and we had this extra pile of edible food. We had bananas, we had granola bars, things that had not been touched. And that was the first time that I realized that edible food is actually ending up in our waste stream. And my partner Grant and I decided that it should be the topic for our next film. So we started doing the research. How many people know what percentage of food in this country ends up trashed? 30%, higher? 52%, it's 40%. So 40% of the food that we have ends up trashed. And if you're a numbers kind of person, that's $31 billion worth of food in Canada alone. I don't even want to get into the US numbers. Basically, there's a lot of edible food that is secretly being dumped. Now, one of the problems with food waste is that there's nowhere that you can go and see this issue. I mean, you can't go to the grocery store and see that 40% of food falling off the shelves. So we don't have a visual. It's actually happening all along the system, right? On the farm, in the wholesalers, in the manufacturers, in the retailers, and about half of it is actually happening in our own homes. So as filmmakers, we wanted to bring the visualization to this story. My partner Grant decided, you know, if we're gonna make a film about food waste and we're gonna be filming the issue, we might as well be eating it, right? It's the best way to prove that this food is delicious and edible. So we set ourselves a challenge. We're gonna live for 6 months eating exclusively rescued food, so food that other people were gonna throw out. Yeah, exactly, this is exactly what I thought. I was really worried. I had an office job at the time. There's a real stigma around anything that other people throw out. I was worried that my boss was gonna peek out our window on the lunch break and see me like this. I was worried about access. Where are we gonna find this food? And I was worried about quality. But as soon as we started finding it, this is primarily at grocery stores, shopping off the cull cart when they're pulling things off the rack, or around the back in the dumpster, or at wholesalers in the dumpster, we started finding copious amounts of food. These are all actual photos of food that I found in the garbage and ate during that 6 months. You can see we have a nice variety. We've got dairy, we've got bread, we've got meat, we've got vegetables. This is chocolate, if any of you are into that kind of thing. Hundreds and hundreds of bars of chocolate. So you can see there's a wide range of food, and most of it was perfectly delicious. And we started bringing people over to our house and having meals, and they'd say, yeah, this is great, it's so delicious and it's nutritious, but tell us, what is wrong with it? So I want to talk about the two main reasons that we see food being thrown out in our society in general. And the first one is date labels. How many of you guys have done this? You're in the dairy aisle, you're buying milk, and you're digging at the back of the case so that you can get the newest milk, right? We all have done it. What I learned about date labels is that they're much more arbitrary than I thought. I thought that they were, I'm talking about best before dates now. So if you look on the label of your milk when you get home, you will see that it is best before date. It is not an expiry date. And what it's telling you is that that is peak freshness. So it's probably when it's gonna taste the best, but it's perfectly legal to sell it afterwards, perfectly safe to eat it afterwards. And when we started looking at our history, we realized that we actually haven't had dates, these best before dates, for very long. I mean, from the beginning of mankind to the disco funk of the 70s, we did not have dates at all. How did we possibly survive? It's because we trusted our senses. That's not to say that we don't need date labels. I mean, we need to know how to rotate the stock. It's helpful to know when something was grown or processed or packaged, but they are not the gospel. You do not have to throw that item out the minute that it hits the date that's on the package. So I want to encourage people to use their senses a little bit more and to trust themselves with food. I mean, yes, if your yogurt has mold on the top, don't eat it. But for most things, you can go a few days or even a few weeks past it. If you want to know details, come and discuss how old I've eaten milk and still survived. Because the problem with dates is that it's leading to waste like this. So this is a shot of my partner Grant in a dumpster. It's full of hummus. It still has 3 weeks left on the date. We all know hummus is a nutritious item. It brings up all kinds of questions for me around why a perfectly nutritious item like this would end up in the landfill in such scale. So we talked about dates. Now I want to talk about the second reason that we find food being thrown out, and as this perfection ideal. This cauliflower, this is a grower in California. He did such a good job at growing this cauliflower that it is too big for him to sell at market. It seems completely ironic, but he was leaving about 30% of his cauliflowers in the field for this very reason, and yet at the same time we know that we have people that are hungry. Here's another example, celery. They were cutting about 50% of the celery off the package so that it would fit in the bag. These are just two examples. I could go on and on with many, many examples of perfection. We have lots of success stories too. I bought a 2-legged carrot yesterday at Save on Foods. I was really excited about that. But there are many things that you can do as individuals. So once you become aware of the issue, if you want to know more about it, I encourage you to watch our film on the Knowledge Network. But as individuals, if you want 3 top things that you can do, the first one is to buy that food. Buy the imperfect things. Buy those orphan bananas that are at the side in the produce section. No one is buying them. Buy that wonky carrot or that bruised apple. It's not going to kill you. The second one is to value the food that you bring into your house. So in our fridge, we have this Eat Me First bin that you see right here. That's how we prioritize our leftovers. And yes, we eat our leftovers. It sounds so simple, but you actually have the potential to save about $700 a year if you're actually eating all the food that you bring into your house. And then the third thing is to get involved in your communities. This is a shot from Farm to Food Bank, which runs a great program out in Abbotsford. You get to go in the field, literally get your hands dirty, glean in the field, leave some for the farmer, give some to charity, and take some home as well. So it's a really great way to get involved in your community. And I guess my final point is to really think about food and think about the fact that it's not food waste, it's just food. So we need to share it and value it. Thank you.